When your wife asks you to install a new air conditioner with a temperature sensor in the bedroom, you have no idea that this device will reveal a truth that will destroy your entire life. I run an HVAC installation and maintenance company in Kansas City. Business was going well enough to afford a house in the suburbs, provide for my family, and save a little for our kids' future. My name is James, and my wife's name is Daphne. She taught at the university, loved her work, and often stayed late grading student papers. We'd been together for 6 years. We had 2 children, 5-year-old Ethan and 3-year-old Alice. We had a Labrador named Buddy who adored the kids and always greeted us at the door. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. That evening in February, Daphne asked me to install a new air conditioner with a smart thermostat in our bedroom. She said she was having trouble sleeping due to temperature fluctuations. I agreed, as it was only a few hours of work. I installed the system, connected it to Wi-Fi, and set up the app on my phone. Standard procedure. A week later, I noticed something strange. Checking the system's performance statistics through my phone. I always monitor the equipment I install to make sure everything works perfectly. I saw that the air conditioner was turning on during the day. On Wednesday, when I was on a call across town, and the kids were at daycare and preschool, Daphne was supposed to be teaching at the university. Maybe she got sick and came home. I texted her. "How was your lecture?" She replied an hour later. "Students were particularly active today. I'm exhausted." Long Wednesday. A chill ran down my spine. If she'd been at the university all day, who turned on the air conditioner in the bedroom at 2 in the afternoon? The following week, I deliberately checked the system's operating schedule. Wednesday again. Again at 2 in the afternoon, the temperature in the bedroom dropped sharply. Someone had set the cooling to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. And again, Daphne claimed she'd spent the entire day at the university. I started paying attention to small details. Daphne began showering more frequently when she came home on Wednesday afternoons. She said it was stuffy at the university, and she was sweating. But it was winter, and the heating there was moderate. One day I came home early. A client had rescheduled. It was Wednesday, around 3 in the afternoon. When I pulled up to the house, I noticed a black Audi driving away from our street. Nothing special, but something clicked in my mind. I entered the house. Daphne was coming out of the shower, her hair wet. "James, what are you doing home?" She seemed surprised, almost frightened. "The client rescheduled." "What about you?" "Home early from the university." "Yes, they canceled the department meeting. I decided to work from home." Buddy was acting restless, circling around the bedroom, sniffing. Dogs sense when something's wrong. I started planning. Not a confrontation, observation. The next Wednesday, I told Daphne I was going to a big job site in the neighboring city and would be back late in the evening. Instead, I parked 2 blocks from our house and waited. At 1:30, the same black Audi pulled up to our house. A man got out of the car, about 35, in an expensive suit. He didn't knock on the door, he just opened it with his key. His key to my house. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to kick down the door and catch them. But I knew an emotional reaction wouldn't help. I needed facts, evidence, a plan. Instead, I started digging deeper. I checked Daphne's bank statements. We had a joint account, but each of us also had a personal one. I'd never pried into her personal finances. I trusted her. What irony. It turned out that 3 months ago she'd started withdrawing cash. Small amounts, $200, $300 once a week. Supposedly for personal purchases. I also noticed a payment to a clinic. Not our family doctor. A private clinic downtown. I called, introduced myself as her husband, said I needed to clarify details for insurance. The administrator initially didn't want to disclose information, but when I insisted that I had the right to know about my wife's medical procedures, she let slip. After such a procedure, your wife needs rest. Make sure she follows all recommendations. After what procedure? I tried to control my voice. A pause. "I'm sorry, I thought you knew." Termination of pregnancy. A month ago. The ground fell from under my feet. Daphne and I hadn't had intimate relations for 3 months. She'd complained of fatigue, headaches, work stress. And now everything fell into a horrifying mosaic. The next Wednesday, I hired a private investigator with a camera, my friend who sometimes did side work like this. We recorded the man entering our house. We recorded him leaving 3 hours later, kissing Daphne on the doorstep. That evening I decided to act. But not the way she might expect. I came home as usual. We had dinner with the kids, talked about their day. After we put Ethan and Alice to bed, I said to Daphne, "Found something interesting in the attic today. Want to see?" She was surprised but followed me. In the attic, in a box, I'd deliberately left a gift, an expensive gold bracelet I'd found in her things a week ago, hidden at the bottom of her lingerie drawer. Inside was an engraving. D. Forever yours, T. "What's this?" I held the bracelet in my hand. Her face went pale. "James, I can explain. Tommy, your childhood friend, right? The same Tommy who's now a cardiologist at the Central Hospital? The one you mentioned so often at the beginning of our relationship." Silence. "How long has this been going on, Daphne?" "A year," she whispered barely audibly. "We met again at the reunion. Started talking. Just as friends at first. Just friends don't get abortions." I couldn't contain the cold fury in my voice. She cried. Talked about how she was confused, that she didn't want to destroy the family, that Tommy understood her in a way I never understood her, that she felt alive next to him. "Did you ever love me?" I asked. The pause was longer than I would have liked. "I thought I did, when we got married. But with Tommy, it's something different." The next morning I called a lawyer. A good divorce lawyer. My client recommended him. I handed over all the evidence, camera recordings, financial statements, medical documents confirming the abortion. But most importantly, I remembered how 3 years ago Daphne insisted we put the house in both our names. I agreed because I trusted her. Now it meant that in the divorce we'd have to split the property. However, I had an ace up my sleeve. A year ago, I'd opened a separate business account and started setting aside part of the company's profits for expansion. Officially, these were business investments, not family money. My lawyer assured me that these funds would stay with me. The divorce took 4 months. Daphne took half the value of the house, half of our joint savings. But my business assets remained untouched. I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore, and bought a smaller but cozy one for me and the kids. But the biggest revenge wasn't about money. I called Tommy. Yes, that same Tommy. I introduced myself, said I wanted to talk man to man. We met at a coffee shop. He looked uneasy but came. "I want you to know one thing," I said calmly. "Daphne got pregnant by you, and she had an abortion without telling you." Asked her why. She said she wasn't ready to destroy my family for you, that it was a mistake. His face. I saw something break inside. "What?" I put a copy of the medical documents on the table. "You can check. She wasn't going to leave me for you, Tommy. You were just Wednesday entertainment." I left, leaving him with this information. A week later, Daphne called me sobbing. Tommy had broken up with her. Said he couldn't trust someone capable of hiding such a thing. That if he'd known about the pregnancy, everything could have been different. But now he saw her for who she really was. She begged me to come back. Said she'd made a terrible mistake. That now she was left with nothing. "You had a choice every Wednesday," I replied. "Every time he walked into our home, into our bed, you made a choice. Now live with the consequences." Today marks a year since the divorce. Ethan and Alice live with me most of the time. Daphne never managed to cope with her emotional state after the breakup with Tommy and the loss of her family. The kids are happy. Buddy still greets us at the door. My business is thriving. Turns out when you don't spend energy on fake relationships, you have more for important things. And Daphne? She still teaches at the university. Lives in a small apartment. Tommy married another woman. I heard from mutual acquaintances. Daphne comes to see the kids every other weekend, and I see in her eyes the same pain she once inflicted on me. But I realized something important during this year. The story didn't end when I confronted her in the attic. That was just the beginning of understanding how deep the betrayal ran. About 2 months after our initial confrontation, when we were already in the middle of divorce proceedings, I received an anonymous email. No sender name, no signature. Just a link to a cloud storage folder with dozens of text messages. At first, I thought it was spam or some kind of scam. But curiosity got the better of me. The messages were between Daphne and Tommy. Not just recent ones, they went back almost 18 months. Far longer than the 1 year Daphne had admitted to. I spent an entire night reading through them, each message like a knife twisting deeper into wounds I thought couldn't hurt more. The earliest messages were innocent enough. "Great seeing you at the reunion, and we should catch up sometime." But within weeks, they'd evolved. "I can't stop thinking about you. Remember that summer before college? I've always wondered what if." By the 3rd month, they were planning their Wednesday meetings. Daphne had specifically requested to teach Tuesday through Thursday classes that semester to keep Wednesdays free. It wasn't a spontaneous affair, it was calculated, methodical. She'd engineered her entire schedule around betraying me. But what gutted me most were the messages about our children. In one conversation, Tommy asked if she felt guilty. Her response, "The kids are happy. James is a good provider. It's not about them, it's about us, about what we deserve." As if our family was just a comfortable arrangement she was entitled to maintain while pursuing her happiness elsewhere. There were messages about me too. Complaints I'd never heard directly. How I worked too much. How I didn't understand her intellectual pursuits. How I was comfortable but not exciting. Reading someone you love dissect your shortcomings with their lover, there's a special kind of agony in that. One message thread particularly stood out. It was from 5 months before I discovered everything. Daphne had written, "I think I might be pregnant." Tommy's response, "Is it mine?" Her reply, "I'm not sure. We haven't been careful enough." Then, "James and I haven't been intimate in weeks, so probably yours." The next messages showed their panic, then their plan. Tommy had recommended the private clinic, arranged for the appointment, even paid for it through a cash transaction, so there'd be no insurance trail. He'd thought of everything, except that I monitor our bank accounts. But the revelation that made me physically ill was this. There had been someone before Tommy. The messages referenced "not like last time" and learning from past mistakes. I'd thought Tommy was her first affair. I was wrong. I printed everything. Every single message. My lawyer said we probably couldn't use all of it in court. Privacy laws are complicated, but it painted a complete picture of premeditated long-term deception. At our next mediation session, I brought a sealed envelope. When Daphne's lawyer started talking about how these things happen, and marriage is complicated, I slid the envelope across the table. Inside was a single printed message, the one where Daphne told Tommy she wasn't sure whose baby it was. "Before we discuss custody arrangements," I said calmly, "I think we need to acknowledge the full scope of what happened here. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was an 18-month deception involving multiple calculated lies, financial manipulation, and a pregnancy termination that my wife couldn't even be certain wasn't mine." The room went silent. Daphne's lawyer opened the envelope, read the message, and I watched her face change. She whispered something to Daphne, who'd gone completely white. "Where did you get this?" Daphne's voice was barely a whisper. "Does it matter?" I replied, "It's real, isn't it?" The mediation ended early that day. Within a week, Daphne's demands had significantly decreased. Her lawyer had clearly explained that if we went to trial, these messages would become part of public record. Daphne couldn't afford that, not with her university position, not with her reputation in the academic community. But I wasn't done. You see, Tommy wasn't just a cardiologist. He was married too. Had been for 7 years, with 2 kids of his own. His wife, Sarah, was a pediatric nurse. I'd never met her, but I'd seen her in photos on Tommy's social media, before he locked down his privacy settings. I debated for weeks whether to tell Sarah. It wasn't my marriage, wasn't my business. But then I thought about those Wednesday afternoons. While Tommy was at my house, Sarah was probably picking up their kids from school, making dinner, living her life completely unaware that her husband was living a double life. I decided she deserved to know, not through an anonymous message that felt cowardly. I found out where she worked and showed up one day during her lunch break. I introduced myself, asked if we could talk privately. She was confused but agreed. "I don't know how to say this gently," I told her, "so I'm just going to be direct. Your husband has been having an affair with my wife. For over 18 months. I have proof." I showed her some of the printed messages, not all of them, just enough. I watched her face go through the same emotions I'd experienced: disbelief, denial, anger, devastation. When she started crying, I felt like a monster for being the one to destroy her world. But I also knew I'd want someone to tell me. "There's something else," I said. "My wife was pregnant. She had an abortion. According to their messages, the baby was likely your husband's, though she wasn't certain." Sarah sat in silence for a long time. Then she asked, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know the truth. Because I wish someone had told me sooner. Because I think you're living in the same lie I was, and I couldn't let that continue without at least giving you the choice to know." She thanked me, gathered the copies I'd brought for her, and left. I never saw her again, but through mutual connections, I learned that she'd filed for divorce within 2 weeks. Her case was even more straightforward than mine. Tommy had been stupid enough to use their joint credit card for hotel rooms on some occasions. When Tommy found out it was me who'd told Sarah, he called. He was furious, screaming about how I'd destroyed his life, his family. I let him rant for a full minute before I spoke. You destroyed your own life, Tommy. You just didn't know it yet. I simply made sure the truth came to light. And by the way, that pregnancy Daphne terminated? She told you it was definitely yours. But in private, she told me there was a chance it might have been mine. We'd had a rare intimate moment around that time. So you'll never really know if you could have been a father to that child, or if she aborted what might have been my third child. I heard his breathing stop. What? Think about that, Tommy. Every choice has consequences. You chose to sleep with a married woman in her marital bed. You chose to give her a key to sneak into another man's home. You chose to believe every lie she told you. And now you get to live with wondering if she was lying about that baby too. I hung up. It was petty, perhaps. But it was also true. Daphne had been so careless with our intimate timeline that even she couldn't have been certain. The fact that she'd told each of us what we needed to hear to make her abortion decision easier said everything about her character. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. Ironically, not a Wednesday. I got primary custody. Daphne's mental health had deteriorated enough that even her lawyer advised her not to fight for 50-50 custody. The judge was particularly swayed by the testimony of the kid's therapist, who noted that both Ethan and Alice had expressed more stability and happiness during their increased time with me. Daphne got supervised visitation every other weekend and Wednesday evenings, though she rarely took the Wednesday slot. Too many associations, I imagine. She also got her share of the marital assets, but between the legal fees and her having to move into a smaller place, her financial situation was significantly reduced. My business assets remained protected, and I'd been smart enough to document every dollar I'd invested back into the company. But here's the thing about revenge. It's not just about what you do to someone else. It's about what happens to them as a result of their own choices catching up with them. 6 months after the divorce was final, I heard through the grapevine that Daphne had been passed over for tenure at the university. The official reason was insufficient publication record and concerns about commitment to the institution. The unofficial reason? One of her colleagues had learned about the affair, and academic politics being what they are, her reputation had taken a hit. Universities care about discretion and propriety, especially in senior positions. Tommy's medical practice suffered too. Cardiology is a small community, and word travels fast. Several of his colleagues' wives were friends with Sarah, and suddenly Tommy found himself socially isolated. He lost some hospital privileges when a review board questioned his judgment, not officially because of the affair, but there were enough concerns about decision-making that his career trajectory was permanently altered. Meanwhile, my life was improving. The energy I'd been unconsciously spending on a failing marriage was now invested in my business and my kids. I hired 2 new technicians and expanded into commercial HVAC systems. Revenue increased by 40% in the first year after the divorce. I also started dating again, though cautiously. I met Rachel through a business networking event. She owned a small construction company. We bonded over shared experiences of building businesses and navigating life after divorce. She'd been through something similar, though her ex-husband had been the one who'd cheated. We understood each other's trust issues without having to explain them. Rachel met the kids 6 months into our relationship. I was terrified they'd resent her as a replacement for their mother, but kids are more perceptive than we give them credit for. They'd seen me happy and stable, and they wanted that to continue. Rachel never tried to be their mother. She was their dad's girlfriend who happened to make really good pancakes and knew how to build a proper treehouse. Ethan asked me once, about a year after the divorce, why did Mom stop loving us? He was 7 by then, old enough to sense that something had fundamentally broken in our family structure. Your mom loves you, I told him, because it was true despite everything. She just made some very bad choices that hurt our family. Sometimes adults mess up really badly, and there are consequences. But her bad choices don't mean she doesn't love you and Alice. Do you still love Mom? Alice asked. She was 5, still young enough to hope for reconciliation. I love the person I thought your mom was, I said carefully. But that person wasn't real. I'm not angry anymore, but no, I don't love who she actually is. Does that make sense? Ethan nodded slowly. Like when you think you're buying a toy that does cool stuff, but then you open it and it's not as good as the commercial. Something like that, buddy. But you too. You're better than any commercial could ever promise. You're the real deal. Daphne showed up late to Alice's 6th birthday party. She'd promised to be there at 2. She arrived at 4, after most of the guests had left. Alice's face when she walked in, hope mixed with resignation, broke my heart. This was the pattern that had established itself. Daphne making promises, Daphne disappointing. Traffic, Daphne said, not meeting my eyes. Right, I replied neutrally. I'd stopped calling her out on lies that only hurt her relationship with the kids. That was her bed to lie in. Rachel, who'd helped me set up the entire party, graciously stepped back when Daphne arrived, giving her space with the kids. That's the kind of person Rachel is. She understood that despite everything, Daphne was still their mother, and those moments mattered. I watched Daphne interact with Ethan and Alice, and I saw something I'd never seen before, genuine remorse. Not for hurting me, I think she'd compartmentalized that, but remorse for what she'd lost with the kids. She'd missed so much of their lives in the past year, and you could see her realizing that time doesn't pause, childhood doesn't wait for you to figure out your mess. After the party, as she was leaving, Daphne asked if we could talk. We sat on the porch while Rachel took the kids inside to start cleaning up. They're so big now, Daphne said quietly. Ethan lost another tooth. Alice can write her name. I missed all of that. You chose to miss it, I said, not unkindly but firmly. Every Wednesday evening visitation you skip, every weekend you cancel. Those are choices. I know. She wiped her eyes. I see her, you know. Rachel. She's good with them. She is. Does she? Do they love her? They like her. Love will come or it won't. But she's not trying to replace you, Daphne. She's just trying to be a positive presence in their lives. There's a difference. I messed up everything, didn't I? It wasn't really a question. Yes, I agreed. You did. But the messing up isn't the end of the story. What you do now, whether you show up for your kids, whether you become reliable again, whether you do the work to heal, that's what matters. I can't forgive what you did to me, and I can't forget it. But those kids, they'll forgive you if you give them a reason to. They're wired to love their mother. Don't waste that. She nodded, crying silently. Then she asked, Are you happy? Really? I thought about it. Yeah, I said honestly. I am. Not in spite of what happened, but because I learned what I won't accept in my life. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I learned that truth, even painful truth, is better than comfortable lies. So yeah, I'm happy. I'm glad, she whispered. And I believed her. That was a year ago. Today, Ethan is 8, Alice is 6. Daphne has been more consistent with her visitation. Not perfect, but better. She's in therapy, working through whatever drove her to make the choices she made. I don't ask for details. It's not my concern anymore. Rachel and I got engaged last month. The kids are excited. They helped me pick out the ring. Daphne actually congratulated me when I told her, following our co-parenting communication protocol. It was civil, even warm. My business is thriving beyond what I imagined. I have 12 employees now, 3 trucks, and contracts with several major commercial properties. The kid who started out just installing air conditioners is now running a successful HVAC company. Funny how life works out. But the most important thing? Those Wednesday afternoons when I check the smart thermostat data from the house. Because yes, I kept that system even after selling the old house. I see normal patterns. The temperature fluctuates naturally based on weather and time of day. No sudden drops at 2 p.m. No secrets hidden in the data. Sometimes Ethan asks about that period when everything changed. How did you know? He asked recently. That things were wrong with Mom? A machine told me, I said, smiling at the absurdity of it. An air conditioner, believe it or not. That's weird, Dad. Yeah, buddy. It really is. But sometimes the truth comes from the strangest places. The important thing is what you do when you find it. Revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about reconstruction, rebuilding your life better than it was, showing your kids what resilience looks like, and moving forward with integrity even when the person who hurt you didn't. Sometimes it's about watching someone face the natural consequences of their choices without interference. Daphne lost Tommy because he couldn't trust her. She lost tenure because her colleagues couldn't respect her. She lost primary custody because she couldn't provide stability. I didn't cause any of that. I just made sure the truth was known. And sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, being present for your kids, building something meaningful, and finding love again with someone who deserves your trust. I think about that February evening sometimes, when Daphne asked me to install that air conditioner. If I'd said no, would I still be living in ignorance? Would I have gone another year, Another 5 years before discovering the truth? I'm grateful for that air conditioner. I'm grateful for the data that didn't lie when my wife did. And I'm grateful that I had the strength to face the truth and build something better from the ruins. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.